Hola, muy buenas a todos y bienvenidos de nuevo a mi canal. Soy TheKingOfLCV y esto es Metal Gear Solid 5 de Phantom Pain. Y os voy a mostrar una cinemática de una de las veces que he llegado a la Mother Base.
It's raining. Vamos a ver la siguiente misión que nos ha surgido, que es una también secundaria pero obligatoria. Protege los restos del Hombre de Fuego. Recupera los restos del Hombre de Fuego. Pues nada, tenemos que ir ahí porque si os acordáis no fue atropellado, pero desapareció misteriosamente. Así que vamos a ir a por él. Nos llevamos a Dido y nos vamos por la noche. Así tal cual. Y apañado. Voy a cambiar esta por el rifle por si tengo que fundir alguna bombilla, que nunca se sabe. Y nos vamos con nocturnidad y alevosía. Y así averiguamos más sobre el Hombre de Fuego y todas estas cosas. La verdad es que son muy interesantes y curiosas las misioncillas. Vámonos. Que no se diga.
Vámonos. Aquí, vale, aquí está la base. Vale. Seguramente esté a tope de todo. Porque no lo he fundido las luces hace tiempo. No estarán a tope. Pero bueno. Igualmente vamos a intentar infiltrarnos. Vale, ves localizando. Ves localizando. Que no pasa nada. Vale, van con máscaras. Unos cuantos, hay que hacerse con ellos. No sé si será necesario eliminarlos a todos o simplemente con llegar al hombre de fuego ya nos sirva. Pero bueno, quizá no pase nada. Igualmente lo averiguamos. Vale, vamos a checarlos a todos. Con tranquilidad. Ah, mira, ahí están hablando de colocar minas terrestres. Vale. Hora del martillo de Thor. Va a quedar ese solo. Los demás creo que van a cobrar. Bueno, esperamos que si se va el camión, es mejor que se vaya. Vete yéndote, que la que vamos a liar va a ser puesta. Vale, parece que se aleja. A ver, ha entrado ese también. No, es eso. Hasta luego. Vale, ese no le ha llegado el rayo. Le atizamos. Vale, no han quedado muchos, pero bueno, algunos sí que han pillado cacho. Algunos han pillado. Vale, este tiene... No pasa nada. Hasta luego. Amejo, déjale dormir, hombre. Tendrá que descansar un poco. Tú, fumar no es nada saludable. Te lo digo yo. ¿Ves cómo no? Vale, otro menos. Vale, me quedarían dos. Aquí está el hombre de fuego. No sé si al acercarme ya saltará la cinemática o qué, pero bueno, de momento voy a hacerme con el puesto. A ver, hay otro ahí, desgraciado. Me voy a hacer con todo el puesto por si acaso. Adiós, adiós. A este le voy a disparar un poco en el culete. Porque no sé si al pillarle así se puede alarmar el otro. Entonces, mira, mejor lo hacemos así. Con tranquilidad. Ahí hay cosas, no pasa nada. Vamos a lo que vamos ahora. Vamos a dejar a todos estos mocos. Me queda este. y otro que está por allí. Vale, igualmente tiene chaleco, pero si se lo come en el brazo, bien comido está. Vale. Y ya cuando eso ya hacemos con ese y listo. Y vamos a otra cosa. Vale, ese ha visto a ese.
Subject on board. Leave the rest to us.
Llevas casco, no pasa nada. En el culo no llevas casco. Toma. Ve durmiendo. Vale, puesto... Dormidos todos. Vale, creo que no... Ya podría. Imagino. Pero bueno, me lo voy a llevar a todos. Por ansia viva. Bien, tú ve. Oh, vale, hay se oye como si hubiera más enemigos. Encontré un enemigo. Vale, por este no vamos a hacernos por el puesto, pero bueno. Como está lejos, esto sí que me interesa ir quitándolos pues si se queda. Aunque yo creo que sí. Voy a hacer la prueba, a ver si me acerco al hombre de fuego. Ya hemos hecho la misión. Esto me lo llevo ya por llevar, pero bueno, para saberlo. Amigo, dormi. Vale, ya se ha despertado. Vale, se nos lía. ¿Dónde vas, desgraciado? Sí, ahora. Tu casa. Es que se nos despiertan. Vale, venga, vamos a ir al hombre de fuego, que si no... Se nos va a despertar rápido la gente. Venga, llevamos a este ya. Y listos. Vale. No me deja entrar. Ahora. Le mandamos para casa. Un unicornio. Como LOL. Este era Volguin. Se iba.
I barely recognize you, Colonel. Skullface used your thirst for revenge against Big Boss, did he?
Boss, I've updated the mission list. We've received some new job offers. The details are on your iDroid.
Madre mía, todos los casos que tenemos ahora. Que también muchos, claro, vale para esto, para saber más sobre el niño que flota. Ya habéis visto un montón de cassettes. Vale, ahora ya en esta zona de cuarentena vamos a tener aquí jaulas porque los parásitos, vamos, los skulls que vamos a ir extrayendo van a venir aquí, van a aparecer aquí en esta zona de cuarentena. Así que muy chulo, la verdad. Tenemos el hombre de fuego y la peña. Sí, es la zona de cuarentena exactamente. A ver, ¿cuál es la esta? La plataforma de cuarentena que está, claro, está aislada. Podemos venir aquí siempre que queremos creo que es el triángulo. Hola. Toma ya, emblema, máscara de gas. Ya sabéis, hay aquí un emblema, vale, que no se puede entrar. Pues chicos, hecho. Hay un montón de cassettes, no sé si os interesaría echarles un ojo, pero la verdad es que no, aquí en cassettes hay mucho, pero hay mucho lore. Lo habéis visto, el tema de el niño que flota. Ahora nos desvelarán muchas dudas. El hombre de fuego, quién es el chico que flota, en fin.
Volguin, the GRU colonel, was burned alive with a Shagohod during Operation Snake Eater 20 years ago. Despite suffering severe burns to his entire body, he still clung to life. After you left Seleniarsk, Volgin's body was taken to a research institute in the outskirts of Moscow. But modern medicine couldn't explain why he was still alive. Not that the colonel was any ordinary man to begin with. That constant electric current he had running through his body that he could unleash at will. To be honest, I was always uncomfortable around him. Thought I might get electrocuted just by standing nearby. The institute studying him was tasked with investigating and developing human paranormal abilities. The comatose Volgin was used to further the Soviet Union's research into such abilities. But not long ago, the facility burned to the ground. And Volgin's body was never found among the rubble, even though the fire started in the room where they were keeping him. This occurred at around the same time you woke up. If Skullface was right, and a thirst for revenge can turn a man into a demon and keep the dead alive, then this man on fire who's been coming after us ever since you woke up, well, that just might be what's left of our old friend Volgin. It's not over yet. Back in '64, in Seleniarsk, you brought his plans for a utopia down in flames. That grudge is what's keeping him alive.
Vale,
The
¿qué pasa
day
con
the
el niño que
research
explota?
facility holding Volgin burned down, a Soviet jumbo passenger jet happened to crash nearby, far away to the north of that hospital in Cyprus. On board the plane was a young boy who was being studied at the same facility. The plane fell to Earth from over 8,000 feet, but the boy's body was the only one not recovered. At almost exactly the same time as the crash, Volgin awoke in that facility. According to the Research Institute's documents, the gifts this boy demonstrated included psychokinesis and telepathy. To protect his mind from being inundated with other people's thoughts, he always wore a kind of gas mask. A rudimentary form of psychic insulation, apparently. We don't know where this boy is, but if Skullface is connected to him, we may cross paths with him yet. This boy is part of a new age, where nothing we understand about the world makes sense anymore. Don't let your guard down.
Claro, que este psicomantis luego para los siguientes Metal Gear que sucedieron.
So what were they doing at Nzoya Badiabulu? That facility with all the people laid out in rows?
The abandoned factory Shibani was held in.
It is precisely as you guessed. Black Anna was coding languages into the vocal cord parasites. They infected the subjects with the parasites, then made an incision in the throat to expose the vocal cords. That allowed them to play recordings of a desired language directly to the parasites.
And the parasites learned the languages that way. That's some teaching method. I just don't get how a bunch of bugs had the brain power for it.
They don't. Do not judge them by human standards. They do not learn as a function of intellect.
Then how do they do it?
What language the parasites react to is coded into their genes. You could expose the Japanese strain to English for years, and it would never learn the language and react to it. The pronunciation, rhythm, and structure are different. But what about, say, Spanish and Portuguese? Linguistically, the two are very close.
Yeah, they're both Ibero-Romance languages.
Even so, a Spanish language mating pair exposed to Portuguese will not copulate. Only when they hear Spanish. Only then. And the majority of their offspring will be the same.
So it's a literal case of a mother tongue.
But if that's so, I don't see how the different strains can be created in the first place.
Well, among the many thousands of offspring, there may be just a few that react to Portuguese.
You're talking about mutations.
Correct. Playing the tapes helps to identify the mutant strains. Those specimens are then isolated and bred with one another. From their children, specimens that react more strongly to Portuguese can again be selected and bred. Repeating this process creates a strain that reacts solely to Portuguese and never to Spanish. Mutation and selection. No different to breeding roses.
So you kept increasing the change over the generations, adapting them to languages from all over the world. It must have taken a hell of a lot of patience.
More like patience. Just how many died for this?
There's something I still don't get. In order to tell which larvae will react to Portuguese, you'd have to let them develop and then see which copulate. That means you'd need tens of thousands of guinea pigs. There's no way you could do that in a facility that small.
For normal selective breeding methods, you would be right. But there is a more effective selection method when training the vocal cord parasites.
Go on.
It is not only when mating that the parasites listen for language. Shortly before hatching, larvae display markedly increased activity in reaction to particular language. The active eggs can be identified under a black light, so the eggs that react to Portuguese are selectively placed in the throats of subjects. So you see, narrowing down strains that react to the target language is an effective process, though I'm sure that even so, many lost their lives to create the various strains.
Taken against their will into that dungeon.
There are two reasons for playing the tapes for the parasites. One, to isolate the eggs that respond to the target language. And two, to cause the specimens raised from the selected eggs to mate.
I get how the system works. But why do they respond to language before they even hatch? It's not like they can mate from inside an egg.
It is because the larvae learn the language before hatching.
You mentioned that what language the parasites respond to is hard-coded into their genes, and that they don't have the brain power to actually learn a language. But then you say that the larvae at Nzoya Badiabulu were learning the languages in the egg. Your story doesn't add up.
Your country is home to a unique songbird. The Japanese bush warbler.
Sure, what of it?
What a beautiful call it has. But no bush warbler can sing it perfectly at the start. As chicks, they can barely chirp at all. They must learn from their parents and other adult birds. Only then can they sing properly and attract females. So naturally, there are individual differences in each bird's call. Though they start on the same footing, each bird is influenced by its teachers.
And the parasites are the same?
Like the birds, the parasites have a genetic predisposition towards a particular language. But while in the egg, the larvae's ears are tweaked by listening to the voice of the host. This tweaking ensures that the grown parasites will react better to the host's speech pattern.
Why would they have an ability like that?
Well, there are distinct regional differences within even the same language. Rare is the language that has no unique dialects. Yes, learning the host's speech pattern before hatching attunes the larvae to whatever twist of pronunciation it will encounter. This adaptive ability is what makes them so formidable.
I see. So a language requires selective breeding, but the parasites can learn dialects by themselves.
Of course, having the egg-stage larvae listen to the tapes in the factory was not meant to teach them. It was more important to use that trait of theirs to identify the mutated strains. As I mentioned earlier,
Is that really accurate enough to use as a weapon? You could wipe out a neighboring ethnic group by accident if their pronunciation is too close.
what you say is true. In that sense, they are imperfect as ethnic cleansers. But for his purposes, they are good enough. His objective was not to exterminate any one ethnic group, but to render the world's lingua franca, English, inert.
Vale, madre mía, todo lo que hay por ahí. Bueno, son datos que, a ver, si os interesa, pues ahí os lo he dejado un poquillo, que nunca viene mal. Y nada, si no, pues lo pasáis para adelante. Bueno, chicos, lo dicho, espero que os haya gustado el capítulo de hoy. Ha sido un placer, como siempre, compartirlo con vosotros. Muchas gracias por todo, un saludo y hasta la próxima, campeones.